Red is run. I'd like to call this meeting of the Tilton Selectmen together, 11:14, and would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'll be running the meeting tonight as Selectman Scanlon is a little bit under the weather. And the first thing on our agenda is a Main Street update, but I don't see that. Moving on. Jean, would you like to start your report?
My report, or
No, it says here budget review.
or
and
the
if-
selectmen's budget?
Yes. And if she shows up on time, we'll just go right into that.
Okay.
Except for, hold on a second, can I help you?
No?
No? Would you like to got a question, make a statement?
No, I got my tax bill and I thought I'd spend a little more time paying attention to what goes on in town. So-
That's how I ended up being here.
All right.
Terrific.
Have you also looked how it's apportioned
Yeah.
in different districts? I think we're number 2 behind the school.
Yeah.
Okay. Jamie?
Tim, did you want to come up here, or you just
Sure.
gonna sit back down? So, you should have a copy of the administration budget in your packet. And Tim and I went over that budget. So, I think I might hear Julia.
You're going to say saved by Julia.
Is that you, Jules?
Yes.
All right. We were moving on already. Time and the Board of Selectmen wait for nobody. We were just going to start with this until you got here, that's all. So step right up. You're up.
Are you waiting for someone else or no? Just you?
Just me,
Okay.
sorry.
No, that's fine. We just wanted to make sure you had everything that you wanted.
So, you know, we're still continuing on. It's kind of a lot of behind the scenes sort of action, trying to build relationships with, for instance, a hardware store owner or different businesses downtown. And I wanted to thank you for working on the parking issue the other night with Billy Lawrence. That's very important, I guess, to a lot of the business owners down there. So thanks for working on that and getting, I understand, some signs.
Yes,
Continue to watch that.
they've been ordered, yes.
Oh,
You all got a copy of that, I sent that to you.
Yep.
So, one question I had though was, I was wondering if we can talk in general, maybe not solve this problem tonight, but it's important to have the sort of public-private partnerships with the town and developers. And so I just wanted to work on that. I've heard some things from developers around town regarding the land use office and communication problems, possibly. I don't know the other side of the story. I know that some people are very, they have big personalities and they're possibly difficult to work with, and I don't know the whole story, but the relationships are very important. So I remember, Jeannie, you had a business roundtable at one point, right? And
Yes.
I didn't, that sounds like a great idea, and I don't know if that would help sort of have better relationships.
Well, since you brought it up, one of the things that, as you mentioned, the selectmen are working on the parking issue in downtown, and after, I've been working with Officer Gilman, and after one meeting where he came in and we talked about the parking sign. He and I talked about this idea of having a meeting with the businesses in downtown Tilton with him and I and anyone else who wanted to be there to talk about what are the parking issues and to start to develop that relationship with the police department, the town hall, and the businesses so that we could hear directly from them. I, had done it in the past, depending on the business owners. We would host something, say, here in town hall. You could do it, 8 o'clock in the morning or in the evening, whatever. We would, and he was willing to go out and, invite the business owners, and we would get that information out there. So it's something that we had been talking about as a follow-on from the selectmen's decision to help Brian and Lawrence with their issue, because it is an important issue in town, and we do want to help the businesses, so.
It's not just Bryant and Lawrence that
No.
it's an issue, it's the entire downtown.
No.
It affects a lot of.
Which
you're
is
right.
why we were, and I was gonna bring that to you tonight, just to see if you were okay with Officer Gilman and I moving forward on setting that up.
I would love to be part of that, if it works within my schedule, I'd love to be part of it.
Yeah.
I think it's much needed.
As well.
Absolutely.
And what do you think about having the land use staff also?
Yes. You sounded like it was something that's not related to the downtown parking, but more the developers who come into town with projects and whatnot.
Yes.
So would that be a different group of people you'd want to meet with? Because this sounds like it's isolated to Main Street businesses,
Yeah, this is for.
but yours sound like it's businesses in general.
Well, I don't want to get into something that should be non-public.
Right, but that's why I'm,
It could be considered a Main Street business, or it just could be just relationships with between land use staff over the years, not even just this year, but in past years, land use staff
Mhm.
and things we hear from business people and communication problems, it seems, possibly.
so that's
Yeah.
any business in town.
It could be any business, but, yeah, I guess we could talk.
Well, so to answer your question about having land use involved, I'm certainly happy to. Don't see that as necessary to this particular problem, because we're talking about parking and developing that relationship with the police department and getting the feedback from the businesses about what they're seeing relative to parking downtown. I don't know
Okay.
if there would be
So
a good use of our time.
Okay, so
this
that's
would be a
one issue.
second,
Two
And this
different
would
issues.
be
This
a
would be a
different issue
second
of
group.
fostering just a public-private communication.
Communication, right.
And we had, and to your point, you had mentioned earlier, we had done that when the previous town planner was here. We did have a roundtable with the businesses and were, I think, started off in a really good direction.
So, do you think that possibly now with our new coordinator, that would be an opportunity not only to get to know the businesses in town, to get together with sort of like a consortium of the businesses around and getting to be acquainted
Absolutely.
and develop good relations and open communications and things like that. That might be something that we could develop in the near future, right?
Yeah.
I think that's sort of where you're going with it.
That's exactly what I'm thinking.
Right.
And if the selectmen want to be there, that'd be,
Yeah, if it's within,
It
Yeah.
sounds like there should be more detailed conversation between Juliet
yep,
yes.
and
Absolutely.
the town
Some other,
administrator.
yep,
Yeah.
we can do that later.
that was my next thought process, yeah.
I'll keep everybody in the loop, and
So I
we can do it during business hours.
kind of get to, with Jeannie and separately and then just come with us with the plan.
All right, great.
Okay.
Sounds like everybody supports it.
Yeah,
Sounds great, thank you very much.
before you leave. So I had a business owner actually come up to me and ask me about putting a, their tourist-oriented directional sign up on the highway that would direct people to historic downtown Tilton.
Yes.
And this is the guide that DOT printed.
Oh,
Is
Right.
that something that you would be interested in, because the board last week
Mhm.
voted to?
absolutely.
Yes, so.
They voted to,
Ask you to
Absolutely
fill
support
it out,
oh, okay.
Absolutely
Yeah,
support it.
What do we got here?
run with it. It's a,
No, I
That's
think
the
it'd be great.
guide.
it's quite a,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's the guide that DOT puts out.
So
They have a
neat.
regular department that does
Right,
that.
application, right.
Bill Lambert's in charge of that.
Cool. Okay, yeah, no, I'll definitely get on that. Why not?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, what about Christmas downtown? What are we gonna do with Christmas downtown and Main Street? What is it gonna look like
Well, I was going
while
to,
Julie's here?
so the 150th asked me to talk to the selectmen about that, but if you want to be involved in that conversation, if you want me to bring it up now, I can.
Would you like to, I think that would be a grand thing if we can coordinate on some level.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still
Go
interested in
for it,
lights.
Catherine.
I
So
don't know.
typically, on Main Street, we all know the Public Works decorates just the trees, we put lights in the trees.
Right,
We have put the conduit in, so they all have a lot of, so this year they can be electric rather than the solar. But the 150th discussed lighting up Main Street. And we recognized that it would take a number of years to accomplish it, but right now, the Tilton Inn, the school across the street at Compass Classical Academy has, and I briefly spoke with Billy last night about lighting up the facades of the building. What they talked about was lights from,
Rochester, Michigan, that's what I had shown Alan.
oh, okay,
Yeah.
so from roof to sidewalk.
Roof to sidewalk, sort of like, like what?
It's like what they do in Rochester, Michigan is the buildings, they have string lights. So let's say the whole front of the building just has lights hanging all the way down so that every, like, one building will be blue, one will be red, one will be yellow. It's an amazing
I think
display,
I've seen that sort of thing. It's really
but it's a lot of
interesting.
work
Oh, is it?
So,
And money.
and money
Oh.
and
one of the
electricity.
one of the questions under 50th is, would the selectmen object to it starting with town hall?
Oh,
Any of the others said, me personally, I'm totally willing to get up there on the roof and help hang them, but how about you guys?
And we
And
don't
what
have to,
does it cost?
we don't have to
I think that's
start that big. I mean, this will take a while to get all the businesses involved.
I think if you,
But right-
I'm 150% on the, as the 150th anniversary, 150% for town hall. But I think if you approach some of the businesses downtown, knowing some of them,
Mhm.
as I do, that they will probably go along with us this year on some of the colors.
That's the plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that
We have
sounds
some-
neat, so.
2 members that plan on going around next week and talking to them.
so this is what,
Oh, wow. I haven't seen the picture.
yeah, so you can pass down, you can see.
That's a good one.
Well, that's-
So we have a couple employees up here that are really excited about decorating the balcony at least.
Johanna,
Yep.
she loves the
Oh,
holidays.
okay, that's what I.
Melbourne's, I think, gotten
Did you
involved
what,
on
too?
board.
Yeah, I just got a real quick,
Yeah,
Oh,
So-
okay,
you know,
the big bright light
Yeah.
show.
That's the eventual plan.
Yeah, so that is, okay, those are string lights then.
It would bring people,
Okay.
What would it cost to do it? Do you have any idea yet?
no, but like I said, we wanted to at least be able to put up more decorations on town hall than we normally
Well, you
So
have the
we can-
budget.
Right, well, we can do what we did last year, Joe. Anticipate this year for next year and get it, at the half.
so,
That's how we got the island lit up.
and you could start out,
Yeah.
I don't know if they still do it in Plymouth, but when I worked on the Plymouth Main Street program, they took the lights and outlined all the brick buildings along Main Street. So that's pretty cool looking too. And that would be a lot simpler than this, if you were gonna try to,
Just outline them
right.
for this year and then try to do that in the future
I'm
years.
just saying that's an idea.
Mhm.
I'm game for either way.
Peter?
What about LED floodlights lighting the building instead of strings?
They talked
Yeah,
about
how
that,
about that?
the projection.
Yeah,
projections, yeah, they talked about
we
that.
should have fewer things to maintain, and the LED bulbs should be.
They talked about that because we had the outlets
Mhm.
at the trees, and the device could be attached to the tree somehow with the outlet, so it's not, doesn't
Yeah,
leave the premises.
somebody could walk off with it, but it'd still be easier than.
Oh, there's cameras up there. If they walk off with it, we'll
Tim will
know
know.
we're there.
We'll put some tracking devices on it.
Maybe.
No, that's probably easier. And-
So do we have a consensus that town hall goes first? That's a yes, yes, I'm a yes. Peter?
Cost, please.
I do want to find out, get it the most cost effective for the best effect. I don't want just the cheapest so much, but I would like to know it's not going to cost $1,000.
Oh, yeah, no.
You know.
I think those projection lights aren't.
No, I understand that, but we should know what we're.
And I believe that they were working, so for example, we still have solar lights that used to go up in the trees, and we don't use them anymore.
Mhm.
So they're gonna use the solar lights on the balcony,
Yeah,
because there's no electricity out there.
let's wait until after Thanksgiving.
So they were kind of trying to use what we already have.
So,
And the snow is out there, so they can work in the snow, right?
since we're talking about Christmas and decorations, I did speak with Bob Hardy the other day, and he asked me to find out from you if you want to go forward with wreaths again this year. So,
Wreaths?
wreaths,
I do.
Well, we do,
yes?
yes,
Yeah.
Consensus?
Yeah.
Yes.
yep. Same places, everyone?
Yeah. They were nice last year.
Yep.
And I would make a motion to purchase the wreaths from Bob Hardy.
Second.
Is there any discussion? I was waiting for John to jump in. Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? It's unanimous.
All right.
Okay, do you have anything else?
I do not. at
Does
this
anybody
time.
else have anything for Julie? Okay, thank you ever so much,
Thank you,
appreciate it.
and if you need help with the lights, I'm glad to help and ask the Main Street.
Nice.
Thank you, Julia.
Yeah. Okay. Next, we have the budget.
Really nice.
Administration budget. So,
You have to talk into the mic, so I can hear you.
okay, can you hear me now?
Okay.
All right. So the administration budget, how would you like to, I imagine you don't want me to go through it line by line. Do you want me to pick out the things that I think are important to note, and then you can ask questions, or?
And also, I would just add that the first time that we went through this, just at a very high level, since then, Jeannie and I have sat down and made some adjustments, lowered some of them. So,
You want to take it?
no, I was going to say,
Okay.
if you cover the highlights, I think
Okay.
that's a good starting point.
So, we'll start with the administrative office supplies. When Tim and I looked at that, the expense for 2019 looked quite high as compared to the budget. The budget was $3,000.
What line is that, please?
It is,
Oh, I see it, 300.
okay.
Okay, I'm back.
All right, so it was like 5,000 and change. We discovered that the printing for the annual reports was in that line, so that got pulled out. As a consequence, the department request is now $3,000 versus $4,500, so it remains the same, it doesn't go up.
Where did the printing go?
It went to the printing line,
Oh,
administrative.
created, okay, got it.
Yep.
See it.
Under the administrative dues, everything remains the same, other than, and I think Catherine had asked about this as well, I don't think we need to have a membership in Lakes Region Chamber of Commerce unless somebody feels otherwise. I think we are in a good place starting to, with the Main Street Committee and all that we're doing here in town, to start attracting and promoting the community once we get to a point where we feel like that that's something we want to join. But right now, I don't see a need for it unless somebody disagrees.
Anybody? Okay.
All right. On page 4, that's my page 4, but it's 340 under, excuse me, it's 335. No, that one stays the same. 340, administrative equipment, maintenance and repair.
Yeah.
That line we reduced from, we had originally 600, we reduced that down to 400, actually kept it the same that it was in the last budget. There were more expenses this year that we don't anticipate for next year, so we reduced that.
Right, and
Jump in.
we do have some expenses for the lift that are gonna, you'll see in your next manifest, and that'll account for about 3/4 of that line. So,
We still have a heating issue on the stage.
which, so that would more than likely, those types of things, these are more the inspections and
Okay.
lift related. Those items come out of the building maintenance and repair.
Okay.
Under account number 350, administrative advertising, that was, we didn't change that actually. I just asked why the expense was so high, Tim?
Well, and primarily because of the turnover that we had this year,
Administrative,
and
too.
the number of advertisements we had to do. Well, for 19, so we had a number dealing with planner.
Planner,
We had
town
to go out-
administrator.
we had to-
public
Town administrator
directors.
wasn't this year, but but we did have others that we.
So with all those openings, you're
Well, was
saying
this-
that amounted to half of that 1991?
I think roughly, not quite.
Okay.
Not quite, but there were also, those are the public hearings, those are, other advertisements that are taken out.
But our 3-year average is 16 for advertising. So if you look
well-
back at the last 3 years,
We have experienced a good amount of turnover
I know,
year to year. So it really depends on.
so we can only hope that that will stop.
Mhm.
We don't,
We're gonna
You
work
can't
on
predict it.
making it stop.
Well,
Okay.
that'd be great.
Account number 385, administrative miscellaneous expenses. That line, it originally was 3,800, the department request. We reduced that down to what it is in the 2019 budget, 3,300. This miscellaneous expenses, parade candy, Christmas wreaths, pre-employment background checks, etc. I think Tim and I talked about this. We really need to pay more attention to what we have in a line before we go and spend. We just say we need this, and we should be, before we spend, we should be going to Tim and saying, what's in that line, so that we don't overspend the line.
I'm
I
happy
think
to say no.
Yeah, we need to pay more attention to
Yeah.
that going into the next year. There needs to be more control over
as
that.
long as it doesn't take away from our parade candy. Because that is a priority and that should be locked in as a budget item.
We do spend a lot in parade candy. The Christmas wreaths are generally $3 to $3.50.
I know,
So
but we
it's about
cut down
10%
on
of
the
that.
parade candy last year. Remember, we ended up I personally went shopping and I spent about $120 less than what we did the year before.
So let me just ask you that, to that point then, is that because I have heard some selectmen say we spend too much on candy, and I've heard you say that's a priority, and I, as your administrator, I'd like consensus to know from all of you, because that's what we need to be doing, is looking at these items and making sure that before we spend, we have the money so that we're, the goal is, I think for Tim and I both, is not to overspend these lines
Right.
in the next.
I
Yeah.
get that. I also think that it's not because it's parade, and I don't think it's because it's the money, it's what brings the community together. And I think that's what it is for me. I could care less standing in the freezing cold throwing out candy, but it's because all of the community comes out for that event, and that's what I'd like to be out there doing. And that's what it does. And that's what it brings to me. That's what it means. It doesn't mean, money. It's $500 or so, $600, because it used to be $700 and $800. Now it's about $600. That's what I got the bill last year. Tim, don't look at me like that. It was $600.
No, I'm just thinking about the number of parades.
Easy.
So.
Well, it's Halloween. Old Home Day and Christmas.
How much was allowed in that line for parade candy for the year?
I'd have to go back and look. I believe.
You had said to me that
I think it was either 1,100 or 1,200.
I would say 1,100, 1,200. That's what was in there.
For parade candy?
Mm-hmm.
2 parades.
2 parades.
And then also in this are staff meeting expenses, things of that sort, which are more incidental. It's not a lot of money it's about $25 a month.
So,
That's about
right.
10th.
So the budget was $3,300. As of 11/3/19, we spent $3,700. And all I'm saying to you is that I think our goal should be to not overspend the lines.
We've already overspent the line. We have a parade to go.
I
Where
know
does that
that,
money
so
come
going
from?
into 2020, you'll find it somewhere.
Yeah.
We need to set up a budget. I love the parade. It's my favorite part of being a selectman, but it does cost a lot of money.
So I do let the department heads know which lines they can't count on spending anything out of
Yeah.
this time of year. Just had that discussion with one of the department heads today. So because of the projects that the board has already approved and looking between now and the end of the year, so that rather than doing numerous budget transfers that would then be more difficult for citizens to track at town meeting, looking at, well, gee, we budgeted this, but we spent that. How come the budget's different from what it was when we set it in March? So rather than doing, maybe 80 or 100 budget transfers to make everything sort of come out right, I keep track of the available monies that I know that we're not going to spend in certain larger lines and reserve that, if you will. So.
Would it make sense to have a policy in place that the department heads, if they have a piece of equipment, and they'd like to buy it with this year's amounts rather than raising it again the next year, by November 1st, have those requests into the Board of Selectmen?
Maybe by September 1st, not November.
If you know you're going to need equipment, we should know about it as soon as they.
Well,
Things break.
usually, there
you go.
by the end of October, middle of October, we pretty much know how much money's going to be left over in certain parts of our
Right.
budget.
Yep.
That's why I said November 1st.
Tim's already thinking in August how much is left over.
Well,
Well, yes,
things change.
yeah.
Right, exactly.
As we get closer to the end of the year, that
But
number is
Whatever
more
the date
reliable.
is, it would eliminate that, it would make people think ahead, rather than just go, oh, hey, by the way.
You just want to be careful that you then don't create an incentive for people to say, hey, there's money left.
We just say no. The Board of Selectmen just says no. It's the Board of Selectmen's budget.
Mhm.
So the Board of Selectmen, and that would, I just think it would, I just remember the year that we were,
The
I wanna say
encumbrances?
Yeah,
The
the
year of
encumbrances, the
encumbrances?
year of encumbrances. I don't know if you remember that. Pat, do you remember that? We were just, it was an onslaught.
Oh, yeah.
That wasn't me.
I think we even had a special selectmen's meeting just to encumber.
That wasn't me.
It was crazy. So I'm just
Have that for the
thinking
record.
to
Right,
I
Eliminate
love
it.
the
I agree.
not spending, and So if we go back to parade candy, $1,100 a year for parade candy,
Mhm.
couldn't we throw less and spend less?
Of course we can, but I
So-
think that's a separate conversation from
Yeah,
his
if we
budget.
don't invite
That's
kids,
a whole
kids up on our
conversation
bus.
about what we do about parade candy.
yeah, if we
No,
don't
we're
invite
talking
our,
about the budget. We got $1,100 budgeted in this budget for parade candy. And
Want to
we've
reduce
asked
it?
the department heads to slash and slash.
so if we don't invite our children up on our, whatever you call it, float or whatever, and we say, don't give this out and divvy it up along the parade route, then we could do that.
Yeah.
Would you like to reduce that?
If you want to say no to the children that you've invited this Christmas, you can say, do that.
Yeah, we just have them throw less. Or let the
Are
kids throw.
you going to tell a child to throw less candy?
Would you?
Yes.
Peter?
Rather than have the children throw less, I would gladly let them throw it all. I don't throw a whole lot.
Mhm.
I'd rather let the kids
Me
do it. I'll
either.
be up on the vehicle.
There you go.
I'm good with that too. So
So-
I'll make a
So we spend
motion.
500 instead of 600.
I'll make a motion to set a budget of $500 for parade candy per parade. Per parade. So instead of 11, that's 1,000. If we spend less, then it just goes into the fund. But what we buy obviously has to go down. It's bad for, I love throwing the candy, but it's bad for kids and it's expensive.
And it's really not allowed.
I've heard that.
And it's dangerous.
And yet-
It's dangerous at the Christmas parade.
The fire department throws it too.
What else is in that budget that we don't know about?
Staff meeting,
Is there-
Staff meetings,
refreshments.
refreshments,
Okay,
cakes.
so there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
One second.
Discussion.
Can we reduce it to 800?
I was going to say, it's not enough.
Yeah.
Would you like to amend the motion?
I'll amend the motion to reduce it to 800.
I'll second that. All right? You got all this?
Yeah.
All right. Is there any discussion on the amendment? We're voting on the amendment now. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No,
Okay, it's 4-1. Let the record show. Now
I make a motion, we do away with the birthday cakes and the miscellaneous
there's a motion on
refreshments.
the floor.
We already voted it.
That's the amendment.
Yeah.
Okay.
With the amendment. Now
Good.
we're voting on the original motion,
As amended.
which reads $800 as opposed to 1,000. Is there any discussion?
I think you're shooting yourself in the foot.
Ask the businesses to donate to it.
There's ways we can get extra candy if we're so inclined.
Mhm.
I'm sure. You like to, anything else? Anybody?
I've said my piece.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No,
Let the
make a
record show.
motion that we cut the budget out for birthday cakes and miscellaneous refreshments during the year for staff birthdays, and
We don't do that
We
anymore.
don't do the cakes.
then what's in there? You just said refreshments, and
Refreshments,
So
so
staff-
what's
crackers,
refreshments for?
Crackers and
Public
cheese.
hearings, public meetings.
Crackers and,
Cookies sometimes for
When you
public
had your
hearing.
event for,
The
say,
stuff that we serve up here. I think.
we bring that though.
the stuff.
Why are we buying
When,
it?
when we did that celebration for the town clerk, we bought that.
If there's a swearing in, for the police department,
Award
we
ceremony.
purchase things.
He
for
brings a
awards.
cake.
We often are.
Before we have
Well,
the
now I-
discussion, there's a motion on the
I
floor.
make that motion still, because I think
There
that
is
there's
a
ways
motion
around that. We don't need to
On
bring
the
that,
floor. Is there a second?
What was the motion?
to eliminate that. Because there's people here that bring things and make things, and, you know, the chief brings a cake when we have a swearing
I'll
in.
second for discussion.
Yeah.
Okay.
When we have a swearing in for the police, the chief brings a cake. or cookies or donuts or whatever.
That-
And those are in his,
Yeah.
in his miscellaneous line.
So why are we having a thing in the miscellaneous line and bringing cookies and things? Because we end up bringing them downstairs for staff after it's all over. People have 1 or 2 cookies and go home.
It just depends what event is going on, is, you know, what gets charged.
John?
What is the amount we're talking about?
I'd have to give you a breakdown of that line. The other things that are in there in prior years are retirements. You know, we had budgeted one amount for our former town administrator, and it was nearly 3 times that by the time it was done, which was, you know, the board's wish at the time. We had a selectman resign and leave, and there was something done for the, you know, the retiring selectmen.
So here's.
I mean, things of that sort have been in prior years, so that's.
But we don't know how much is allocated of this
I'll be-
$3,300
I'll be happy
to
to
that.
give you a full
I just-
breakdown of it.
You had given me a breakdown, so Catherine.
But I mean, I
has that.
could sum it, you
Mhm.
know, by the type.
How can we make a decision if we don't know a breakdown?
I would say we can.
So do you wanna hold that?
Yeah.
Well, do you
I'll
have a
be happy
breakdown?
to- I'll be happy to.
Hold that
well, you can-
No, line by line, but there's not an aggregation for each.
Yeah.
So John?
Well, we
What
make a
number
decision
are
on
we at
candy,
right
but we're
now
not
for
making a
each
decision
amount
on that.
that's approved by the
3 to 5.
selectmen?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
What is the amount that we're at right now? We just changed the amount with the last vote, the motion.
Well,
That brought it down by $200,
So-
300, we're at
so-
3,000 now?
the budget was 3,300, and we expended 3,700. And originally, the department request was 3,800, and after Tim and I spoke, we decided to drop it back down to the original 2019 budget, which was 3,300.
Okay, but the last motion that was made, we just subtracted a specific amount of money. to
Yes,
be
so it was
taken
from 1,100 to 800.
out. Okay, so we're looking at 3,000 right now.
That's correct.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor. Would you like to table your motion?
I got,
Or we call the question?
well, a part of it, me, is upset about this because we can go down and talk about parade candy, which you know brings the community together, but when we are talking about a line on a budget and we don't have answers to go with our motion,
I can do that for you.
and we want to table it to next week, fine. It may be insignificant to everybody else, but
No, no.
So while Tim is working
we're
on
talking
that,
about a budget, we should have our answers.
so while Tim is looking for that information, I can continue if you want.
Maybe we should do without the Christmas wreaths this year.
Maybe we should get artificial with
Mr.
maybe some lighting and we can reuse them.
There's still a motion on the table.
Oh, okay.
We're waiting for an answer.
We are waiting for an answer.
So you want to just wait? You don't want me to move on?
I'd love to move on.
It's up to the,
We can come back.
it's up to the
We can
chair.
come back.
Let's move on.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so line 535, consulting outside contracts. We essentially have zeroed that out. So it originally had $1,000 in the budget. The unaudited expense was $8,000, and this is primarily Jacob, and 2/3 of that was reimbursed by MMANH. We don't anticipate any outside contracts next year. Correct, Tim?
That's correct.
All right. Administration vehicle maintenance, this is account 620. The budget was $500, we reduced it down to $250. I did talk with Kevin, he said that was more than sufficient, and I asked him what the life expectancy was of the town car. That's what this count is. He said he expects to get at least 2 more years out of the car. the one item, the account number 130, the salary for the supervisors of the checklist, you'll see that in 2016, it was $47.60. I think Tim you asked for request for 2020 and was given that number plus 20%, which is how you get to the 5712.
That's correct.
Okay.
Can I ask a question on, while we're on the line 130, salary, moderator, salary, supervisors of the checklist? Is there a general wage analysis for supervisor of the checklist? I mean, we have this at $30 an hour. Are there other towns around us? I mean, we've gone through different wage analysis for all of our staff and employees. Have we ever checked in the area for wage analysis for our salary for moderator and supervisor of the checklist?
That would be before
And
me, I don't
assistant-
know.
Clerks, the people that work at the polls and everything, or how much we should be paying them?
Do you know, Tim? Has that ever been done?
I just know, in talking with other finance directors, and some towns have a set amount per session or per election.
But whose duty is it
really depends.
to make that decision on how much they get paid?
Board of Selectmen, it's our budget.
Ultimately, but the moderator.
But we've
submits
never
a
made
budget.
we've never made that decision as long as I've been a selectman here. So we just get a bill and we pay it, right, and that's it. So, and I don't want to be the bad guy here, I'm sorry, I really don't want to be the bad guy, but we're looking at wages and we're looking at taxes and people, but we've never really looked at this and said, well, geez, should we pay somebody $20 an hour to stand and be a greeter at the door? I don't know if that's happening. That's an example, folks.
It's in the budget. That's a good question.
So I don't know that, but I think we really need to find out the answers to that. What are other towns doing? What are we doing? I mean, I look at
do
it
that.
here at $30 an hour for a moderator, 4 elections.
Maybe we should ask the moderator to come
But
in and explain it
But
to
I
us.
can go through it.
Because he's the one that sets the amounts of people and what they pay the people. He
Right,
submits the budget, we have it here, so if there's a question,
right.
Chuck would be the one, well, the moderator, Chuck in this case.
Can we check also, if we have the moderator in, can we also check Jeannie with NHMA, their wage?
Yep, that's what Catherine just suggested. I'll do that, and I'll also do it on the MMANH listserv where the towns can weigh in on that.
Great.
So essentially by the legislative body approving the budget, which
They
is in
do,
this
they
budget.
approve the wage, right.
Right, but we let it go through and we don't go to the budget committee.
But do they know that?
No, that's a good point you make.
Okay. On page 5, or account number 500. Tim, did you ever find out?
Page 2, Joe,
Oh, so,
right here.
Oh, went from
Recorded.
241 to 500.
yes, it went,
Recording fees?
yeah, it
Okay.
went from
Page 2.
400 to 200. It was reduced down to 200. And there was, Tim, did you find out why there was 0 in that, in 2019 spent?
In which line?
This had to do with the recording fees.
Because those monies are for, if they're tax deeded properties or
So we,
welfare,
that's right, now I remember, so
welfare
we're
deeds
really
that
not
you're
doing that.
releasing,
Yeah,
those types of things that you're recording.
yeah, so that's why we reduced it.
And we haven't had any activity this year.
Okay.
And the tax map update, Tim, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Never gonna finish this thing. So, I have to look at that. The tax map update, that is, that multi-year work that's being done by Avatar. What line is that? There we go, 510. So, and this is to budget for the second year. We have not paid for the first year nor received the first year deliverables yet, because with our new land use coordinator, we wanted to wait and see, if she was agreeing with the former town planner's plan, because there's a whole series. This was really the middle step of a three-step process to get us to having our tax maps online and with shape files and that sort of thing, parcel information. So she has worked with a different company, and it's something that I felt that we needed to just drag our feet on a little bit to make sure that she has time to review what the plan was, see what we were looking at before we spend any money on it. So that's pretty much where we are, and we have discussed it. I have talked to her about what her experience was with a different company and what the pricing was for that, which is very favorable. But there were some unknowns that she was going to find out some more information on. So that's pretty much that item.
Did you get an answer for Pat?
No.
I'm going to go back over there, so and then I'll be back.
Don't ask him questions, you might get to it.
No more questions. The next line item is 440, which is on page 3, midway down. This is the town hall maintenance and repairs. And you'll see we've put 2,000 in for maintenance and repair items, and we're gonna have to probably bump that number a little bit. The 6,200, I got an updated. So at this point, this is the air conditioner for upstairs here, town hall. And we've got 4 quotes, and they range anywhere from 8,000 to 30. Do you know where are you lost?
I'm lost.
It's on page 3,
Okay.
and
Town hall maintenance and repair.
Halfway down.
When she
It's
gives you the
440.
number, it's the last 3 digits of the account number,
yeah,
Joe.
I get that. What was it?
it was town hall maintenance repairs.
440.
I got it. 440.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the biggest item is the air conditioning for upstairs here, and we got 4 quotes, and the quotes range anywhere from 8,700 up to 32,000. And we did have the building inspector take a look at it and see, kind of weigh in if he had any thoughts on it. And his recommendation is to go with the, I guess, we just got the updated quote, which was 18,200 for air conditioning in this side and in that side. And so we had 17,000 in the 19 budget that we want to encumber, and then we'll just have to add $1,000, $1,200, and get it done in the spring.
What kind of an AC system are we buying?
Mini splits. Mini splits.
What
So
is that?
they go on the,
It's a V sheet.
yeah.
They're individual units. They can also be heating and air conditioning combination units.
And they go through the walls?
They go through the walls.
Direct
so-
vent.
Through the brick face?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We wouldn't need,
The quote that we got at the 32,000 level was actually having them sit on top of the roof, going through the roof and then ducting, which is,
Oh.
So, actually, there's a unit that hangs on the wall on the inside, and there's 2 lines that run with the refrigerant, that goes to the master unit that would be on the roof. So it's not holes drilled through the bricks.
Well, that's what I,
that's nice.
That's what I
holes in
thought
the
you were
bricks.
thinking, yeah.
Holes in the bricks would work for me.
Yeah.
for the one quote. So what I just wanted to bring that to your attention, once I get all the updated quotes, because there's one other quote outstanding that's, a year old, then I will make copies of all the quotes and you can look at those. But for purposes of the budget, we wanted to put that money in. And obviously before the end of the year, sign a contract so we can encumber that for next year. Police Building Study Committee, we reduced that down to $1. Didn't feel like, should this pass town meeting, that there would be any reason to be spending any money, the Police Building Study Committee to be spending any money, because at that point it's passed and now it's on to building. So no refreshments.
And if it doesn't pass?
Well, I guess if it doesn't pass, that's something you have to decide whether you're gonna pursue this. I know you've been working on this project for what, 10 years? No, more than 10 years?
20 years, 20 plus years.
Oh, wow.
And I've asked him, and I know he's working on it, I was just curious what we've spent at this point on this project.
We could have built one.
Right. And so,
I do have that number.
oh, you do?
Yeah.
What is that number?
It's just over, not including any depreciation or expense related to Business Park Drive building, the purchase or sale of that. It's just over 400,000.
And with the depreciation and the
That's
loss
study
we
groups.
took, and
Well, so what the over 400,000 is study groups, engineering, architecture fees, various things for multiple plans over the years.
and that doesn't include the current one, right?
No, that does.
Okay.
That includes 194,500 for the current architectural and engineering fees.
The next line item is 480 Grange Building Maintenance. And you'll see from that line that it was overexpended. There were a lot of repairs. It was the pipe and the flooring, the subflooring were the expenses that we incurred over budget. We don't anticipate that will happen again, so we've dropped the department request down to, well, it was 6,400, we bumped it up 400 to 6,800.
Pest control comes out of the senior center donations though. Is that just an accident, Tim?
I'm sorry?
Pest control?
Yeah, you've got listed there natural gas, electricity, pest control,
For
That
town
comes
hall?
out of
Grange.
Center's,
the Grange.
Oh, for the Grange?
that comes out of donations.
So what would we be spending the $6,800 on, gas and electric?
Gas, electricity.
Going on in the
the
sewer,
building.
that seems pretty high. Security,
Yeah, this is all if you weren't there. If the senior center wasn't
Yeah.
there, you'd be doing that,
yeah, I understand that.
right? You'd be doing pest control too, but,
Mhm.
because remember the flying squirrel, the 6-foot flying squirrel?
Oh, and
Next.
the stains on the walls, and, oh, yes.
Right.
Hopefully that's gone forever.
The next item is the line item 991, which still on page 3. This is the workers'
Can we go
comp.
back to the Grange building maintenance? The $400, is that because of electricity and gas going up? Is that why you anticipate the increase? The increase in the electricity rates? Is that why?
Electric went down by
Okay.
12% in our new contract, but the natural gas rates, the markets are still high. So given our usage, it's going to be more for that, but in general, the overall expenses of the building are higher.
Well, we've done almost everything to it. I'm just wondering if we just want to level fund it.
will that be enough to cover?
If electricity's gone down and gas would, I mean, the utilities are the only
Well,
things that you.
Okay.
So if I may, the components of the actual kilowatt hour and the dollars per therm, if you look at your electric bill, you've got supply and you also have delivery, or I can't remember what they call it. So when you really look at what that rate changes, it's not necessarily a 12% reduction, even though our rate per kilowatt hour is 12% less than it was in the last contract. That doesn't mean the bill will be 12% less, because you still have your delivery fee from PSNH or
Okay.
Eversource.
All right,
Does that include, last year we did a bunch of repairs and we had the frozen pipes, that was pretty expensive, and other things like that, and heating problems.
That's what I
Yeah.
said,
Yes.
yes.
So, and I'm really confident that we're not gonna have that this year, so that would bring it down significantly.
Well,
You've got, what,
that's why you saw-
That was spent 11.5.
That, right, that's why you saw the over expenditure in the
Yeah.
line, because of those items. So Tim, of that amount, that 6,800, what part of that is electricity and, those items? Is there anything left for repairs? Whereas if you reduced it down, like Pat said, to 6,400, would that cover
Yeah, the,
natural gas, electricity, municipal, water, and sewer and security?
I think it's possible. I would want to take a closer look at it. And I can project out just what the utilities will be. It's, the air conditioning during the summertime is big. The heating during the wintertime is bigger than most other months. So, getting an average on those, I could look at that and have it for you next week.
we have, and we also have an estimate too to go with that, changing the pipes over tonight later. But, yeah, all right, we'll table that for now, I guess.
The other item, 991, workers' compensation. You'll see the budget, it was 33.9. And we've got the department requested 60,000. You do know that we saw some increases in workers' comp. There were some claims this year, but what that number, Tim, and correct me if I'm wrong,
Yeah.
it doesn't reflect what you're gonna see. We get premium holidays, right, where we get checks from Primex, so that's what we estimate, but then,
Well, it doesn't necessarily occur every year, but we did have a $24,775 premium holiday, and so the invoice to the town was some 33,000. So if you were to look at what we're looking at in terms of a rate increase, we'd be looking at $58,000 to $60,000 as based on our claims experience in workers' comp. But they do, from time to time, they do issue premium holidays. It's not necessarily every year. It depends on their financial results overall.
so that's what I thought were the most important things to bring to your attention. Do you have any questions for me? Uh-oh.
Next week,
Sorry.
I have to study it more. Well, I am a little bit curious, is it because of the workman's comp that it actually went up since the original request we had in October?
Yes, we actually
Is that what
received
sent it?
the actual premium for 2020.
And we
That's
had
correct.
claims.
Did we review, with workman's comp, the rates they charge is based on the job descriptions, if you will? Have we reviewed those recently?
Yes, because I have to do a report to Primex where they go through all that. I have to list all the employees and the jobs that they're in, the categories, yes. So I did that probably 4 or 5 months ago. And that included not only through Primex, not only the employees, but our buildings. There were some things that needed to be corrected, some things that were missing. So that's all been updated.
So I have the answer for you, or answers.
Hold on just a second, Pat.
Town hall building and maintenance, did we totally, I can't remember if the board did or not, totally scratch out the idea of ever repointing town hall? Because I see that we're decreasing the town hall maintenance by what, 10% now?
So I would say we haven't totally scratched out the idea, but we did have
52%.
an expert in masonry take a look at the building, particularly this side.
Yeah.
He felt that it was in fairly good shape. There was no immediate emergency to repoint the building. We tried to, it's going to be very challenging to get in that side of the building and get all the way up to repoint. But he didn't think at this point that there was any emergency to get that taken done. In the meantime, you recall I submitted a grant application to try to get the funding to pay for that.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Pearson.
So, and this is just a very rough cut on this because these miscellaneous expenses, they get characterized or described differently. But in general, employment-related expenses, so that's drug tests, background checks, pre-screening, that sort of thing, amounted to over $800. Staff meeting expense was just under $300. Candy so far this year is at $591. And then we had other incidental things like there was a dinner to recognize the chief for his work on league, and there were 3 dinners at $225. There are incidental items for town hall, light bulbs, a couple of keys, some other miscellaneous supplies, which amounted to about $80, publications of about $100. Another big one was our town meeting expense, so that was $625, because that we don't have any other place where we charge that. So that's refreshments, and then also for the use of the building. So there's a whole number of different things. There were some unusual one-time item things that we might buy once every 4 years or so.
So if we cut out dinners,
So you'd probably be looking at about, at least out of this current year budget, it would have amounted to maybe about $600.
That we cut it further?
so if we cut out another $500 out of that budget, could we make it work?
No, I think it will be overspent. Because
If we eliminated the
This is
ability
not
to
a-
have dinners?
well, it's not a criticism. It's just that there are times when the board wishes to do something, and when we're looking for money, that's early in the year. This is usually where these unusual things come out of. So I'm just being realistic. I think it would be very difficult to have it less than $3,000. Even with the cut in the candy, that brings it down right around 3,000. I suppose we could take another $500 out, but the background checks, the pre-screening, the drug tests, things of that sort.
Those are very needed, I get that, those are very needed, but I'm talking about the miscellaneous, the dinners and the...
Well, the town hall expense, the town meeting expense rather, so those two alone are about $1,500. Those account for nearly half that line. So, So that gives you really $1,500 of other, of which, you know, we're looking at $800 for candy. So now you're at $2,300, so you really got about $700 left for other items. So if you were to cut 500 out, then you'd have $200 left for other items. I mean,
Well, if you didn't go to
certainly-
those 2 dinners for $225, then you would be
right.
really hurting too.
Well, that was really kind of a
That was a
one-time
one-time.
expense, right?
And we could always vote no to go.
Yep.
We don't know about them, Joe, to vote. That's the problem.
Well, I understand. Now,
Yeah.
you have a motion, we have a motion and a second on the floor.
What was the motion?
I'll have to get Pat to.
You'll have to do it. I forgot about it.
So your
You're
motion,
supposed to remember the
Those-
motions.
I believe it was to eliminate staff meeting.
Staff meeting,
refreshments.
$300.
And you said that I didn't put a number on it.
Well, that's what he said they
That's what
spent
he
on
said.
staff.
Yeah, I didn't put a number. I knew I didn't put a number
Cakes
on
and
it.
cookies in general, it wasn't just staff meeting.
Right.
We're waiting for that number.
And refreshments.
so that would be $300.
Actually, we run that.
So what would you like to do?
I'll remove my motion.
Okay, that's that.
I'll remove second.
Okay, so we move right along. The time being 10 minutes of 6, we have a non-public session that's already 5 minutes behind. Before we adjourn to the public, to the non-public, I'd like to ask if anybody in the audience has anything any questions or concerns, any public input.
We're coming
We
back
will
into
come
public
back
session
into
right
public
after this.
session.
So you're welcome to come back. Yes, we'll come down and get you.
I'd be glad to walk around and do the hugs. Okay, so unless you're part of the non-public session, I'd like to have to ask you to clear the road for now. We'll be back in session directly after this. I'd like to make a motion to go into non-public session as per RSA 91A:3, paragraph 2C, consideration or negotiation, never mind, matters which if discussed in public would likely adversely affect the reputation of any person other than a member of the body or agency itself, unless such person requests an open meeting. This exemption shall extend to any application for assistance or tax abatement or waiver of a fee, fine, or other levy if based on inability to pay or poverty of the applicant.
Second,
Roll call vote.
Constantino, yes.
Jocelyn, yes.
Fogg, yes.
Jessamine, yes.
Scanlon, yes?
And we shall return. We are red is run. At this time, I would like to make a motion to seal the minutes of the non-public session as they pertain to personnel issues
We're lucky to have you.
permanently.
Second.
I got a second, yeah. All those in favor?
Jesse,
Aye.
Aye.
would you let those guys know that it came?
Opposed? I think it's unanimous, but in any case, we have a 6:15,
Did you make a
Parks.
motion to seal?
yeah,
Okay.
made the motion, got a second, voted on it and everything. And Parks Commission should be down there.
They are down there.
No?
So you'll see on your agenda that discussion is about the Sanborn Road.
I see.
discussion. So we finished the administration budget. Do you want to go back and revisit that at any point, or are you all set? I'm not asking for a vote. Just if there are any other questions you have on it, let me know.
Are we open now?
We're open.
No, get downstairs now.
Sorry about the delay.
Is what?
Are we be first on the agenda?
You are the agenda at this point.
Like, fourth on the agenda. That's why we're late.
Yeah.
Okay. You're the chairman, Bob.
Yes.
Would you like to come right up and have a seat?
No.
Well, we need to have you on tape. So,
By the way, Bob, they did say yes to the wreaths.
Okay.
what can we do for you, Bob?
You guys asked
Yeah.
Oh,
us
I
to
wasn't
come.
here. I wasn't here. All right.
I don't want them to-
See what
Peter
happens,
suggested-
Joe, when you're not here?
I know you missed 1 week, and
I was asked if the park commission could meet with the selectmen, so I'm not sure what's going on.
well, I know this has to do with the ball field and the
Field,
future
right.
of the ball field. Who's in charge of finding money for it or what have you. But other than that, if somebody would like to jump in here, because I wasn't at that meeting.
Well, so there was a discussion of the selectmen a couple of weeks ago. Maybe you weren't here for that, I don't remember.
I don't recall being
About
here. Oh,
what is the status of the ball field? Should the police department be built? Who is responsible for what happens at the ball field? There, if you remember, there was discussion about that the police building study committee should raise the money or put the money in their budget. There was some
Remember that part.
disagreement among the board, and I think it was Peter's suggestion that we invite the Parks Commission to a selectmen's meeting. Is that right, Peter? And have a discussion about the ball field. So that's why we're here, to discuss that.
Anybody want to go first?
Well, I think that we need to throw a little bit of history on this because we did drop the ball as a board. When, at town meeting, when we purchased the property, a lot of things were discussed in purchasing the property, and everybody said, well, are we going to keep the ball field? And a lot of people said, well, yes, there's property enough there that we can keep the ball field. And going forward with that, after we purchased the property, Kevin LaChapelle, the chair of our committee, came in and said to the Board of Selectmen, what do you want me to do now? What is my charge as chairman of the police building committee? And we wrote up a charge, a task, a list. I think you have it. That did not include looking at the ball field and what happens when, we said, yes, it will fit on the land, but nobody thinking ahead that it will fit, but it needs to be turned around in a different direction, which means construction and everything, and who's going to pay for that? And myself included, didn't think, oh, we should have probably included somebody trying to find out how much that's going to cost and who's going to do that so that we can at least know that we're going to have a ball field in the future when we go to town meeting and say, hey, this is what it is. That being said, in the last couple of weeks, when Kevin came to give the board an update, he said, it's not in my purview, it's not in the police building study committee's purview to look at the ball field, and it's not. He was absolutely right. Well, there was a heated discussion that evening, and a lot of things happened that evening. We won't even relive it. But going forward, we need to figure out how we can now redefine our task as a board. And this is my opinion only, but our task as a board to figure out how we can bring this to town meeting this year if this police building gets passed, which I personally hope it does, that the ball field gets turned around and built with goalposts so that you're kicking it into Sanborn Road and to Tanger Outlet, which would probably need netting and things like that. I'm excited for that to happen. We've, in the plans and discussing it with the architect, we've left a lot of room for parking going in between the police station and parking, as we showed you when we met with you, and enough for bleachers to happen. But now we have to figure out how we can pay for this and how much it's going to cost. So I would like to try to figure out who we can go to as contractors, who we can go to as maybe Milestone to get a number on how much it would cost. Milestone is our construction management. It's not in our purview, but maybe if we asked as a board if they could figure out how much it would cost to put the ball field the way it's supposed to be, we could at least have a number to put on it. There's many different ways and many different ideas that we can have. Maybe the Friends of Winnisquam Baseball will help out. Maybe there are businesses that we can contact that will help out putting the ball field together. Maybe we could put it as a warrant article. Maybe we can put it as the same warrant article as the police building. We don't know. That hasn't been discussed here. But those are all ideas. But do we all have a consensus that we want the ball field? I think that was very well stated, that yes, we do.
I know the park commission definitely wants the ball field.
And last year, one more thing, in last week, in the last couple of weeks, there's been a rumor going around that somebody from the school has knocked on Northfield's doors to try to find land for them. And I dug in a little deeper, and apparently they're under the understanding that there's not going to be a ball field. And so a couple of the football coaches have approached me, and they said, Pat, we're under the understanding that there is not going to be a ball field out there. And so I simply said, no, we are working on it. There's hopefully going to be a ball field there. So if the police building passes, we have plans for a ball field there. So hopefully it will be a better ball field than what's there now. It'll be level, and there'll be goalposts, hopefully. But we're working on funding. That's kind of.
John?
So, like Pat said, we all want the ball field. And what my thoughts were is that we should have a warrant article so that if the police study, the police station goes through, that we will then go and have the warrant article for getting the ball field right. You know, and this, we can adjust this or whatever. And we have to come up with an amount in order to do that. I don't know if the person that's doing the grading and all that could give us a price based on if the police station goes through, we're gonna give you this too. So we have that to tie in with it.
Any major project, ours is gonna be in the neighborhood of $4.5 million or so. Always has addendums, things change. So we can do an addendum to have the ball field. If you wanna waste tax money, then do separate contractors. We're gonna have a contractor there digging for foundations. That area is basically sandy gravel. We'll need about 6 inches or so of sandy gravel and then loam to construct the ball field in the new location. You've got excess material, they can dig it out, move it over there, put it in. It's going to be so much cheaper to put it in that project because they're there, they're mobilized, they've got to get rid of the material anyways, they just move it across the site instead of hauling it off-site.
It should reduce your cost of the building because they don't have to truck all that material off-site. The loam should already be on-site in the berm, so we should have enough loam to dress the new field with the loam that's on-site. So that's why when we met with the study committee, we felt that it should be, as Peter's suggesting, an add-on, that they should ask their contractors what this cost is going to be, because to go out to another private contractor, he's going to have to truck material in, he's going to have to construct this field and grade it, and then capture the loam from the pile, so it's going to hold back construction of the building, or that loam's going to be stockpiled somewhere. So it seems.
And one thing in what Peter's saying and you're saying is nobody was saying we're trying to find a separate contractor. And that's where I think there's a miscommunication, that we're trying to do it the most expensive way, find a separate contractor. That wasn't, and I spoke with you before and I said we're not, but we have to go and get what that would cost for that contractor that's going to do it, to do that type of work as a separate cost. Because if the whole thing doesn't go through, we don't want a contract with this guy to do it.
That's why we have a construction manager. They should be able to look at that and give you a ballpark number probably in 5 minutes or less. They do the work all the time. They can come up with the ballpark.
It just has to be agreed upon with the selectmen. The selectmen have not entered into any type of an agreement to go back to the, given us permission to go back and put that in as an addendum. I mean, we can't say to Kevin, go ahead and do that unless the board says, go ahead and do that, because it's not his task to do that.
Joe? Oh, yeah. I'm not convinced we need a football field. I think it's an expense that the town shouldn't have to bear for the high school. I'm not suggesting that we do anything but just have a green space, recreational space. Football field specifically, I remain unconvinced. That said, apparently we're going to make an addendum to find out about the price. I'm just curious, does anybody else from the Parks Commission have a thought, a theory? Bill?
Well, we've had a football field for a number of years. It is a green space, which also is rentable, and especially in a, we've had issues with other fields have needed to use, other towns have needed to use it for some reason, or for.
Do they rent that
lacrosse.
from us?
What was that?
Do they rent it from us? Is there any profit?
Well, we've had a number of people approach us to rent, and sometimes those haven't materialized, but we do, it is an option, and it is a big green space no matter what form it's in. But as a football field, it's very usable in many different ways besides the football field.
I mean, we have rented it, I can think of it at least once, but as Bill said, there's been others that have requested to rent it, and then for one reason or another, it fell through. They didn't have the enrollment that they were expecting for soccer camps or that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But it does provide, we have a dog show this past Labor Day was held on the field. We hold 2 knockball extracts again. So police departments used it. A lot of families come down and use it, even though they don't register. I've gone up there and seen softball games going on for family reunions.
But they'd still do if it weren't the football field, right?
You could, but you'd have it. You need a level playing surface. I mean,
That's true. If we're going to make it a sports field, sure.
it's got to be level. And the way it is right now, it's not level. When you turn it to run the direction of the new football field, it has to, the 132 side is probably, I'm gonna say, 10 inches to a foot lower than as you approach the goalpost closer to Tanger or the scoreboard.
Yeah.
It's at least 10 inches, probably a foot, wouldn't you say, Peter?
Well, if you look where the current rink is, you get a good foot drop right where that goes, which is.
Yeah, it all goes to one end.
Yeah. So,
Ladies, do you have something to add?
What's the aversion not to have football field?
I just think it's an expense, since we don't actually have a football team. School has a football team, school has a field. And I've heard arguments about, oh yeah, but we let them use it, and we've got a lot of money involved in that. I don't know about your tax bill, but mine went up a lot.
But if I went up, probably more.
Well, that's entirely possible, I can't
No, I'm
speak
just
to
asking,
it.
like, what's the aversion to a football field sort of creates a good community, even though we technically don't have a football team, but a football field and a sports field generates goodwill in the community. It does cost a bit of money to maintain it, but at what expense? That's the only question that I would have.
Peter?
Winnisquam Regional School District has a field at the high school. That field supports the varsity football team, the JV football team, the varsity soccer team, the JV soccer team. Middle school has a football team. They have no place to practice or play their games. They're using the 132 field. The district doesn't have the land right now to put in field for an additional football field. That's why they've been using it.
Understood. That doesn't make it the town's responsibility.
They pay for the painting and all we're doing is maintaining a field.
Well, that's a good thing. John?
And that's what I was just wondering, and I think of what Joe said, and I mean, the fields that are supplied by the high school and middle school are paid for by Sanderton, Northfield, and Tilton appropriately. So this field would be, the sole bearer of the cost would be Tilton only, but it's used by the towns of Northfield and Sanderton. So how much would the school district be willing to chip in so that they would have a field that's open for
That's an interesting
that-
question. Peter?
Well, no, never mind.
Well, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I know,
Catherine, do you have something?
No, I,
like to add?
better not, I don't, no, I don't.
I was gonna say, if we don't have the police building, there's no expense to the town. When the town sold the idea of the police building on this property, we said we would have a football field there. So the taxpayers said, fine, we can have a police station, we can keep our current football field. If that police station goes away, we don't have to spend anything out there. The football field is completely level. The rest of the field is open, it's not level, but it doesn't have to be level for the other activities that take place, i.e. the spectators standing around. We, the park commission, did level an area big enough for the ice skating rink so that we didn't impact the football field. The Friends of Winnisquam Football actually built that field, paid for leveling it, and put up the snack shack that's there. It wasn't the school district, it wasn't the three towns.
It's scoreboard.
And the scoreboard, correct him.
Goalpost.
Goalpost.
So all those things were supplied to.
Privately.
Thanks.
Yes.
Thanks.
And given to the town because we oversaw the management of the property. So the town spent no money creating this. As far as maintenance, the only maintenance you have there is mowing of the fields. And springtime, and once or twice during the year fertilizing. But that's the only real expense outside of the electricity that's there. We do supply the electricity, so.
Porta potties.
So we'll look to get it back to what it was that
Right.
was supplied by the Friends of Winnisquam
Squam.
football and
Right.
all the enthusiasts.
Exactly.
Get it back to what it was, but in that position.
Position,
Exactly.
correct. Yes.
That's what we're trying to do.
Do we have any idea what that would cost?
That's
That's
what,
what we're talking about, kinda, how we get that
Are we
price.
talking
Well, doesn't the
$10,000,
construction company
$50,000?
that is
we're gonna ask them Monday night.
hired by the town have
You'd
the
have to
ability-
ask them specifically to do it, and yes, they do, if we ask them.
Sure,
So-
well, is that difficult? to
Could,
do?
well, I think,
It's
Not
gotta be a
necessary.
board's decision.
John?
so could we get some parameters on what we need to ask them, what we specifically want done, so we can present it to them? So, by the parks? Because you guys oversaw the football being
Wouldn't it be
built
just
in the
what it
beginning,
is, just
so you
turn?
know what needs to be
Just need
done,
to bring the
levels
elevation
it
up.
out, you know, all that, and then we can go forward,
So,
get a number.
Wait a minute, Jeannie wants to speak.
so really all you're talking about is, as it is, just turned. So if it needs to
Leveled.
be leveled and the goalposts and all that. And we had talked about, because it did come up in the police building study committee, because we were asked who's gonna be responsible for moving the goalpost, and we said that would be the owner's responsibility, we'd have Kevin remove them. But I'm sure that we can, you know, to your point, ask Milestone. It was not in the purview of what we asked them to do, so I'm guessing there's gonna be an expense from Milestone to provide us with this. I don't know what that will be.
I would think the estimate would be free, anything after that we pay.
I don't know.
Well,
I don't
we
know.
certainly pay their fee
Right.
were it to go through.
But this is gonna be more than having Kevin put the posts in, and
Right.
you grab a lot, you ask for real specific ratings or types of materials. So I wanna make sure that what we ask them is specifically what we want, and not just they're gonna turn the field and you're gonna end up with, you know, mixed loam and stuff like that, you know, like how much base you want and how much that, soil.
Well, on Kevin's presentation to us, there was a field on that plat.
Mm-hmm.
So
On its conception, it wasn't
Yeah, I
actually
mean,
in the scope of
I
work.
Right,
think
but-
what Bob was saying about the savings from moving the dirt work over there instead of having to truck it off-site, and I'm not sure where you can dispose of it around here, but that to me, that would be a good savings. And
Could be.
plus, I don't think, it sounds like it's not that much work to level that area. I mean, it's pretty level, but to get it up to a grade where it's suitable for sporting events, I mean, to me, I don't know, but it seems to me that what we've done before with the field was very little work to get it fairly level. So I can't see that being a big expense. We're not asking them to do any major work. It's just basically some fill in the proper, which they would know how to build a field. And from using what we have there.
My thought was be more specific, saying, we want a level field, the size of a football field, we want topsoil, and we want it seeded, you know, is that
Right.
what we want?
That's,
So,
Yeah, yeah.
put that down, so when they say it, oh yeah, we'll give you a level field, and then they throw
we want
weed grass on
4 to
it.
6 inches of loam on the top. Gravel,
Proper drainage.
proper drainage under that for the entire size of the football field and the bench area beside it. So, I mean, based on whatever the plan sizes are for the field, they don't have to redraw the plans. They can go off of the plans that they've already submitted showing that. But we need 4 to 6 inches. Right now, I believe, when Winnisquam constructed it, I believe we put down 4 inches of loam over it. The standards today call for between 4 and 6 inches of loam on any sports field.
Just
So,
safety things.
yes, yes,
And we know by experience, on this one, that 6 inches is better.
yeah. because of the drainage and everything, 6 inches would keep the grass healthier than the 4 inches. So
And we have a big pile of loam over there
Yeah.
that needs to be moved anyway.
But if it isn't, if you didn't want it to be a football field, let's say, and you're gonna keep it as green space, what would the green space look like? Would it just be the way
What
it
it
is
looks like
today?
right this very second.
It wouldn't have.
I'm just saying, and I don't know, I'm not an architectural,
I totally
guy.
understand that, but I was just wondering, if the vision wasn't to have the ball field there, would it be just sort of left as is with the new police station there and all the nice new grounds there? Would it just be left as it is? Or would it be leveled off in general?
No,
I
it'd be
don't
left as
know.
is.
Just straight as is, no changes to it all?
But you would have to also put up some type of netting towards the Tanga and towards the Sanborn, because now you'd be kicking towards the road and you'd be kicking towards Tanga, and trust me, you only have 33 feet from the edge of the end zone to Tanga.
I wouldn't know because I've never seen a set of plans where I could read the dimensions, which I've asked for. That's
Right.
one of my problems.
I asked the architect,
Yeah, there are.
Really?
I asked the architect what the plans are for the
This
end,
section.
33 feet from the end zone to the Tanga building.
I don't have it. It was at one of the hearings.
May I ask the board, so as I'm putting together the financials for the police building project, is it the board's wish that when a number comes back from Milestone, or that quote comes back, is that you want that added to the bond? Or are you thinking of, as I heard earlier, a separate warrant article
I
perhaps?
think that we should discuss that after.
Everyone gets a number.
Right. I
Okay.
think we should well, not when we get the number, but I think we should discuss that after the parks leaves, because we're trying to get the little nitty-gritties done of the
Sure.
I have a question
Fee.
for Tim. What would have the least impact on the taxpayer if we included it in the bond, or if we raised and appropriated the total amount?
Well, I mean, you'll pay interest over the life of that bond. You know, I guess it depends on the amount of money. If it's less than $40,000, I would say put it in the operating budget, and
There's your answer.
So
I have no idea what something like that would cost. You know, the advantage is you're mobilizing a crew that's already there, so hopefully you'd save some mobilization costs in the site work.
Okay, so, John,
John already had
So,
his hand up.
I just want to see, we get preferably 6 inches along with drainage, a seating area, netting, and goalposts.
I've been writing it down.
Is that the list? You got-
I have 4 to 6 inches of loam, gravelled, compacted, leveled, seeded, moved the post, the scoreboard, and possible netting.
Scoreboard's fine.
Scoreboard's fine where it is. That doesn't have to move.
So goalposts and netting?
I'm not even sure we need netting, because between Tanger and our field, there's a tree line. And I believe those trees are high enough that any football that's kicked through the goalpost is going to stop in the trees. I would say just on the safety side along 132 that you have fencing or netting there, because those are hardwood trees, and fall year they drop the leaves and they're not as tall as the pines at the other end, but you may want to go for netting on both sides. It's got to be behind the goalpost. Doesn't have to be along the sides of the field or anything, but
So this is going to be part of my selectmen's discussion later on tonight, but there is a concern on the Tanger for netting. So, just so you know that there is concern, that's why I brought it up. But to answer, what's his name? Peter's. So based on the site survey data we have in our files, the distance to the Tanger property line from the east end zone of the relocated football field would be 33 feet on the north end closest to the side of the road, and 20 feet on the south end of the end zone, the end closest to the PD. The property line is not parallel to the football field on the east side. That's the reason for the two different distances.
What's the dimensions of the field?
Oh, I can write back.
Well, it's 100 yards long.
No, it's 120
I know, right?
120.
by 60, I believe. But I couldn't determine that from the plans.
No, it's not on the plan itself, but I'll reply back and say what the dimension of the field, is that what you want? I'll get it. Have you all seen the little
Yeah,
ghost
this,
thing?
this is the plans that Kevin showed us a month or so ago, so.
All right, I will get the dimension of the field itself.
All right,
So I've got all those questions that we can address. Jeannie and I will address the next police building study committee to Milestone. Or we can send them an email, Jeannie.
everybody in the room has had a chance to say something except for our one member of the public. Do you have any thoughts, comments, or concerns?
No, I just agree that goodwill and, if you can get kids out onto a field versus playing a computer at home, they're better off getting outside.
Noted. Bill?
Yeah, actually, as a park commission, we're charged with creating recreational opportunities. Also, when I was reviewing the master plan a while ago, there was a questionnaire to the people, and one of the highest interests in that was to create more recreational opportunities in town. So I think having this field as an opportunity for many, many different sports besides football, I think would be great.
So I think too, being next to the police station is a really good thing. And, that outreach from the police station to the youth in the community too could probably be leveraged going forward as well.
Anybody else?
So we would have to change our directive to the committee.
That's
So
correct.
they can do it and then tell them what we want.
That's correct. Would you like to make a motion, John?
And the directive being to ask Milestone to give us an estimate on what it would cost to put in the ball field.
I don't think that we need to ask the committee to do that. I think we can just do that
That's ours.
when we see Milestone, or send them an email.
So you don't need to ask the police building study committee to do anything if Pat and I are, we're gonna ask Milestone?
We can ask Milestone that, as an addendum.
So would you be
And then-
circumventing the committee that we?
I was
No,
going to say, I would
no,
not like to
No,
do
we
that.
would-
No,
doing
because
that.
it was not part of their
It's
purview,
not part of their
so.
purview. They
So-
told us
I
that.
don't interject here, and I'm sorry, I keep hearing it wasn't part of their purview. I don't remember telling them as part of their purview to build an impound lot over there either,
They're not.
but they did.
No, they didn't.
There was a design for an impound lot over there. There's a design for a tower
That
over
did not
there.
come from the committee. That
It's
came
a-
as a suggestion from the police department, and the committee turned it down.
That was one of the things they cut after the
Yeah,
initial budget. Well, that was in the plans.
How
then.
could they have cut it out if it wasn't in the plan?
It went, because the police department met with the architect at one point in time and gave them suggestions, and it was part of the plan, but we turned it down.
Why do we
Because
have
we
a
have
tower?
one.
Why do we have a tower, communication tower?
So we can communicate.
Because we needed, okay.
It wasn't part of the directive, was it?
Well, police station would have.
Communication in a police station is part of the directive.
Okay, we have communication in other locations, we have, so,
We,
the building over here.
That
I'm just
building-
pointing out,
Catherine, that building
We made
has
a
to
list.
communicate to the other that other repeater though.
So,
And the other thing is we can, that doesn't matter, it's crazy. I'm sorry, it's just,
so it's
it's
going
good. It's
to be a
good.
motion.
May I go down and shake her now?
Go do what, to who?
Shake Catherine?
Oh, no,
Oh.
no, I object.
Do we need a motion or just So you need to kind of work
So-
together.
We
to
need
get
a
some pricing.
consensus, bare minimum.
It's not really an add-on, it's an inclusion.
No, it's an add-on.
It's an add-on.
According to
You
the,
have to. Is in fact
The
an
current
add-on.
contract does not call for a football field or any
Right.
mention of a football field, so we have to,
we have a contract with the
Add-on.
construction management company,
So,
so it's an add-on, addition.
so you or I will ask Milestone what it would cost to add, what it would cost to add that, to do that work, to tell us what that's, and that we would get that, not for them to do the work, but to tell us what they would
Estimate.
charge to do that.
Right.
Okay. I just want to be clear about what you're asking me to do.
Start working
Right.
through it.
The
How very-
additional work.
Gotcha.
okay. So,
Just, and I think the whole thing was like, in the enthusiasm, at least we kind of thought a football field, we just kind of, that the ground to the level over there and it would work. We didn't really go through all of the, what really would take, how to get it done. So I think that's where it is. It was a communication thing. Yeah, we got lost in the whole enthusiasm. So I feel that we're gonna figure out what to go each step at a time.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great,
Thank you.
Ice cream, groceries,
That
Okay, next thing on our agenda is selectmen's reports. Thank you very much. I'm first on the list. Just luck of the draw, I guess. The only thing that I have is the budget for the Concord Regional Solid Waste 2020. And we have a meeting to go over that on the 20th of November. And the budget is actually down considerably. But that reflects one-time costs, here's the 19 and 20. The one-time costs associated with closing down the ash landfill and removing the leachate. We spend a lot of money making the water that goes into the river, I want to say better. There's a lot of chemicals that go in there to pass all the different tests that they do at the plant in Franklin, which is treats the wastewater. in the
Any
river.
PFOs or PFAs?
They test for all PFOAs, but the budget's come down. And unless there's any objection, I would vote in favor of that budget on the 20th. They're also going to ask for a nomination of officers. I'm currently the secretary of the organization, so I would volunteer for that again if it was the will of the board. Any objection? Okey dokey then. The other related news is the property adjacent to the incinerator down here in Pinnacle. And there's a offer on the table right now that they want to take an option on it. We'll realize, like, I think it's $15,000 while we hold the option, but they wanted an option period that went on indefinitely, and so we're still in negotiations on that. Interestingly enough, and this is public knowledge, well, semi-public, the land that we got down there was valued at, and I don't have the number in front of me, but like $1 million, 900 and some odd thousand dollars. It just got appraised for $28,000. 28,000. Now the guy who wants the auction wants to buy it for just over what we got, you know, the 978,000 or whatever we got into it. Why he would want to do that when it's only worth, according to the appraiser, $28,000 remains to be seen. But we're in negotiations with that. And that is, unless there are questions, the end of my report. Next is John Scanlon.
Yeah, I don't have a lot here. One thing that I did notice, and after one of our residents in town was struck by a motor vehicle up by the Chili's, up by that area, I took some time to take a look at the lighting. And I noticed that the lights, there's a crest of a hill there. And then when people come up the hill from Tilton, you can't really, the headlights from the cars that were shining on them. And also, all of the street lights are like a yellow color and very dim. Now, we've had 2 people, well, one killed and one seriously injured there. I've seen numbers of dogs get hit, a good number of accidents, and it's just a dangerous area, and I think that it would be a good idea to request that they improve the lighting through there, whether by brightening up the color of the street lights or adding additional. And possibly we could take lights up from somewhere else and to cover for the cost for it, but I think would greatly improve the safety up there. That's all
Well,
I
it would be, those streetlights wouldn't be on us, it would be the state anyway.
Right, because it's on there.
Right. We could contact the state and ask them to put an additional light up there for safety and then go from there.
Just more improved lighting
Convert to LED.
up through there.
Well, they're putting in LEDs
At the
now.
intersection of AutoServe, when you make a left to like go down towards Walmart or whatever, the post is gone again.
No, I mentioned that 2 weeks ago.
Did you?
I did.
Okay, well, just as of the other night, it was gone, and
No, it's
it was
been-
raining, and like John
Right.
was saying, the headlights are like this. Everything is a prism, and I'm looking, okay, where's the divider?
Where's that
I'm
bump?
looking for the sign, right? I made it, but
That's where it goes.
the guy behind me went down the other way.
And people turning into Lowe's Drive, there was a
Mhm.
stake right at the end of that that people take out regularly
Yeah.
because they have such
Yeah.
small. But I think that intersection, that whole area needs better lighting. That's it.
Pat?
I have a couple of items, and bear with me here on, because some of them are a little bit lengthy. I really do want to let the elderly people and seniors in the town that do not have computers know of a scam that's going on in town. Having some free time on my hands right now. A gentleman up above me had some electrical problems and had Eversource come to our house. And that being said, a couple of hours later, on my caller ID was a call from Eversource. So I answered the call, and the call said, I can save you money. You've been paying your bills for the last 6 months on time, and I can save you money on your Eversource bill. And if you really listen to this, and it identifies it on caller ID as Eversource. And this is what's really scary, but it was a scam out of an entirely different country. But it identifies them as Eversource out of Nashua when you start to question them. And they want your account number, and they want your service address, and they ask all the right questions. So I called the state, the PUC, and I called they put me over to the FCC, and they have thousands of these scams going on right now from Eversource. After I called Eversource, they gave me the numbers. But this is going on in the Tilton, Northfield, Samberton, Laconia area right now, where thousands of people are being affected by this, and they're alternate energy sources that are trying to get you to buy into their third-party energy source. So those folks that do not have access to caller ID, I only do because I work for the phone company, but they don't have caller ID and they think that they're calling from Eversource. It's not, it's a scam. Eversource is not going to ask you for your information ever, ever, ever. They already have it. So just don't do it. So I put out a thing on Facebook too. So hopefully all of our friends, and if people just keep sharing it, people will know that this is a scam. I hate people that take advantage of us, people here in town. The other thing is that I met yesterday, and this is part of Jeannie's thing, with the first one on her senior center pipe relocation quote, and I do believe we should wait on this because he indicated to me that he was going to donate the labor on his quote. Relocate the pipes from underneath the floor to the inside of the bathrooms so that they don't freeze, remember? Okay. Next is we have an issue with Cedar Street. Did you all get my email? For those that
Yeah.
didn't get my email,
What's up?
you want to pass this picture down to Catherine so she can see it? There's a resident on,
I've seen it in person.
there's a house that existed on Cedar Street for, I don't know, 80 years maybe? 60 to 80 years. When they built that house, they built a perimeter drain in that house about 60 to 80 years ago. Well, Laurie Ingalls owned that house for a good 40 of those 60 to 80 years, and she sold it about 5 years ago. Along came the sewer department 1 year, a year ago, maybe, not even a year ago, and did a repair not too far from that home and noticed that there is a perimeter drain, and it's illegal now in these times, in these days, in 2019, to have a perimeter drain. So they had to disconnect that perimeter drain from the sewer line. You can't have it go into the sewer line. I understand that. I fully understand that. But now there's only a very small piece of lawn that he's able to disperse. The entire cellar basement that's over 60 to 80 years has been perimeter drained in underneath the road into the sewer drain. And it's probably maybe a little bit bigger than this portion of the table. And he's forced to drain it over the road, which causes this severe now ice problem. So, in 1 second, Peter, and I understand that it's an issue, and I've been trying to, the last 3 or 4 weeks, find out whose issue it is and why, and I get that the sewer, why they needed to do that, but I'm wondering why we didn't ask him to tie into our drain when we did the road. We put a culvert up just above that. Why couldn't he have dug into that culvert? Why is, now we're forcing somebody or going to fine somebody for dumping because we have an ordinance against it, and we're putting him in an awful spot. And it's not his doing, we're doing it. Because we opened the road up and we found that he had a perimeter drain that legally was legal 60 to 80 years ago. He purchased the house and didn't think anything of it. Now all of a sudden it's illegal, and
I don't know
There's
what you could do. Peter, you had your hand up here.
Yes, he could do a blind inlet in the front yard and put the pipe into that, which is basically you take 2 or 3 sections of concrete manholes, dig a big hole, put some crushed stone on the bottom, put the risers in, put a cover. You can either pipe it direct underground and cover the top so they don't even see it, but it gets the water So it'll go down and perk into the ground.
Was it like a dry well?
But that makes it his problem, the address.
Well, it is his anyways, because it's his water coming out of
Yeah,
his building.
There's all, I have a question.
It comes from Poplar Street too. The water comes from Poplar Street, goes into his cellar.
Just his cellar. Just his cellar. I talked to a guy 2 houses down. I'm standing there and I'm looking at this, and the guy comes over, and we're talking. He told me about they disconnected him and never had that problem before. I said, well, do you have water in your basement? 2 houses down. Nope. So I don't know. And you say it comes from Poplar, but why just that?
Comes
one
down
piece?
from, because of the angle of where it comes down from on Poplar Street, it's angled like this, and it comes down into that house. In the next apartment above him, it affected them as well. It comes down like an angle, but it doesn't, the gray apartment house, it doesn't affect.
It doesn't
Because
come off
it's-
the road?
No, it
It
comes
goes
off, it comes above the road, across Poplar and down. Like Maple Court, it goes above my house, above the house that's above me, and it comes down across my lawn, across Poplar, and then down onto Cedar in between the houses. It doesn't come down, it comes way down from above Buffalo Park, up where Hussman owns that piece of property.
Drain, like as opposed to gutters around this house, that would like the foundation
No.
drain?
It's
a
way-
foundation drain.
It's a
Foundation
foundation drain, that's what it is, it's a foundation drain. But it's been it's existed for a long time. Now we're into the winter months, we're forcing him to put in some type of a dry, what do you call it?
Dry well.
Blind inlet, dry well.
Dry well or whatever in the front of his house, where he just has a small little tiny, I don't understand why we didn't offer to have him just put that pipe into the culvert that we just put in. Because
First
we
thing
can,
I know, it's
I don't know if that's an
done.
option. Is it an option?
I don't know.
Are we allowed to?
I don't
I'm
know.
not sure.
We have other places around town that they go into the drain, into a drain.
People's yards kind of.
So as I inspect houses for the housing standard ordinance, I find many homes, and they're older homes, that have plumbed their basement sump pumps into the sewer. And at that time, I let them know that that's against the law, it's against state law, and it's against town law, and it has been. Like, what's the date on our ordinance, the 70s? So it's not something new. It's been that way for decades. But, we don't knock on people's doors and say, I need to check where your foundation water.
You can't
stormwater's
continue
going."
dumping water on the street.
But they actually knew they had options when that first was disconnected, because their basement refilled right up.
So what happens now if you come into this situation? They were out grading the other day, and no sooner the grader came back and they were pouring water onto the street. So are we just gonna fine him until he fixes it? And who's gonna put in a dry well this time of year?
And
Well,
contract
they-
And how do we know that he financially can afford it? I don't know.
That could be.
I don't know him, so I'm sorry, I don't know the guy. I know of the guy, but I don't know him. I
Could
just,
be a glacier come next month.
and I mean, he's been into town hall, she's been into town hall, right? Is that what you said? To try to resolve it. So we
They're
got,
going to have to resolve, this is their issue. They knew they had an option of putting in a stormwater driveway, and the state allows it. But I think they are looking for the town to resolve this issue, and it's not our issue. I mean, there are options, yes. But, and with, I don't know if they can plumb into the stormwater drainage that Public Works just put in. I have no idea.
Is it up the street or down? I haven't seen it.
I don't know where it is in relationship.
I would think not, because what sort of engineering did we do to size the culvert? What's the hydraulics you're
And
looking
then
at?
if you let one, you let everybody on the street, and then as Peter said,
it's only affecting
the
him.
drain is engineered for a certain volume of water, not to take everybody's stormwater away. Because that's underground water that's coming out of that basement.
Does it pump,
That
pump
foundation,
up onto it? Does it pump, or is it?
Well, he has to now, but he never did. He never did, he never had to worry about it. He had a dry cellar
I feel
until,
for him.
until they blocked the,
Just-
now he has to pump it. And there's no place to pump it. I haven't personally talked with him, but I just, as a selectman, I just, if I owned a house for 60 years and all of a sudden the town came and blocked my pipe and I've got no place to put that.
We have that all through our neighborhood, and the house up above me, they were pumping into my yard, but they had to move their pipe to a further part of the yard where it's so in,
Yeah, well,
and it was.
take a look
nightmare.
and see where further part of his yard is. You can't find a place. It's only this big.
That's in front. I didn't go around the back.
Well,
Do
in
they
back,
have
it's uphill. You can't pump water uphill. It's gonna end up in his cellar again.
well, that water doesn't come from, I don't believe that's surface water.
It comes from up above.
I believe that if that's a foundation drain, that's down at its footing level. So that's
Yeah,
8 feet in the ground.
That's below surface.
You might be able to pump it up, especially in the winter.
I don't even know if he's got room back there. I'm just saying
Well, that's-
that pumping it into the street will create a glacier. It's a safety hazard.
It's already
It's
created.
against the law.
Yeah, it's against our ordinance.
It's already created it. So, all right, who's responsible now to tell him to stop? Whose responsibility is it?
Code
What does our
enforcement.
ordinance say?
Code enforcement.
DPW director?
I would think it'd be, DPW director doesn't do enforcement.
He
I would think.
enforces the conditions, so does building inspector do trench permits?
No,
Code enforcement.
Huh?
If we have a trench permit, it's covered by the construction and all is overseen by the DPW director. Anything to do with roads should be DPW.
this isn't roads. This is his.
It's water onto the roads is the issue for the town right
We have
now.
an ordinance that you can't put that onto the roads. Remember the problem on Auburn Drive?
Oh, yeah, there's
Our
seven.
public
places.
works director came in not too long ago, well, when I say that, sometime in the past 2 years, and updated that ordinance.
Who's authorizing the town to
Well,
enforce
we all
ordinances?
worked on it, yeah.
Only
all
those
worked
people
on
who
it.
are.
And
We
we have
have
to
to
have,
ask them to do that.
well,
Alan
we had
asked
a
for help.
conversation, and it was about specifically this
Oh, I
problem.
remember that. It
But
was
why
just
wouldn't it
recently.
be the police
So what does the
that-
ordinance say?
That enforce the ordinances.
It's an
I would
ordinance.
look at the
Well,
ordinance.
Yeah, I'd look at the ordinance. I can't imagine that the ordinance says a DPW director has to enforce an ordinance.
Yeah,
I think,
I mean,
I would
all of
think
our-
it would come from the selectmen, a letter from the selectmen.
Ultimately, it would come from
Yeah.
the selectmen. I gotta imagine.
I
No.
would suggest that we, I would hate like heck to do something with this person, but anyway, we have to do something soon because it's going to be a huge ice arena if this continues because they're asphalting on the 18th. And it's gonna be an ice arena, and that's gonna be very slick.
I can't imagine it's really good for asphalt to be doing it over a
Yeah,
spot
mud.
that's all muddy.
Mud,
Or-
It's mud now.
I know.
Well, they should take and move where it's draining out of the front of the house. And I don't know if this wind is in the back. I remember walking the property and I can't even remember who was with me, who asked me to be there. But that, as you face the house with your back to Cedar Street on the right-hand side, there's a long strip of land. Yes, it has a gentle slope upwards, but that sump pump could pump it up. And I've never been in the basement, so it would seem to me they could root it up to that corner and let it dissipate over that lawn.
Seep
At
into
least
the
for
lawn.
now, to see if it'll do something.
I have to pump mine out. I pump it right on my lawn and it goes nowhere other than my lawn. Because I have a large lawn, so,
They have a huge amount of water,
yeah.
but, and as you said, it probably originally was Buffalo Park.
I mean, I do mine
But-
in my front yard.
That isn't, so that, like I said, they have options. That's an option that would take probably a couple of hours
Putting it out back.
to have it, to send it out back, depending on their sump pump.
I would guess that the selectmen would not want to go down that road of telling them
No.
what they should do, just that it needs to be addressed. And I would think that the letter should come from the selectmen to the property owner.
Then I suggest that we get on it then. I
I'll
mean,
make
as
that
much as I hate to, I,
motion that we send a letter to the property owner that they have to abide by the ordinance.
Okay, so for clarification and for timeliness, I can draft the letter and wait until next Thursday for you to sign it. Do you want me to send it out myself?
Yeah.
Yes, yourself.
Okay, so
Probably
I
by
will,
motion.
I will draft it up and shoot it out to you so you see what it says, and then I'll,
can you include the ordinance?
Yeah.
Thanks.
yes.
And any applicable state law. There's a state law against putting your drain into the sewer, just so that it's got a complete picture. Whatever Catherine said, there was both state and local, you can't put that stuff into the sewer, Catherine? Is that
Right.
correct?
The sewer commissioner's ordinance specifically
Okay.
states it, and the
Can
state law,
Can you give me that information?
I have it somewhere, Johanna might have it more readily than I.
Ask her.
Is that a motion?
Second,
It should give you more of a history.
is there any,
And that may be a DES regulation, Jeannie,
I didn't make
because
the
of the
motion.
treatment plant.
Who made that motion?
John did,
Okay.
and I seconded it.
Do we know the address, so I know,
26,
Teeter?
yeah,
Okay,
26.
I believe so.
all right.
So, the question's been called. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? It is unanimous. Okay, Pat.
I think I'm done, thanks.
Okay, next on the list is Catherine.
Okay, I have a list.
Checking it twice?
I actually did. The 150th committee met yesterday. They have asked if the Board of Selectmen would consider changing their name. Doesn't have to be at this point because they're still dealing with the 150th, to Tilton Community Events. So the reason is, for example, the zombie walk was a huge success.
Indeed.
So they'd like to do it again next year, but of course we'll be done with the 150th. So what you have is a committee
They want to
that wants to
extend.
continue to
Yay.
do community events like Summer Fair.
Mhm.
And they would just like to know if the Board of
Absolutely.
Selectmen would support that.
I think that's a great idea.
I do.
For celebrations committee?
Is that a motion?
Yeah, well, let's hold off on that because we haven't had a full a full meeting with all the members. So the name, there were a couple of suggestions thrown in. So before we actually make a motion, and like I said, this time,
I'm glad they're
When
sticking
will that
around,
change?
it's great.
Doing a great job.
I think I think the
After
change
June
actually
30th.
should take place after we're done with the 150th, so that would be
Yeah.
later in the year, but I just want to let you know. And I got the decorating town hall. So these are really questions. So a while ago, we talked about the safety of employees, especially boards and committee members, walking to the parking lot at night. And of course, now we are with no longer daylight savings times, and it's darker earlier, to make that more safe. And I'm wondering if we have done anything. We talked about a light and a
Camera, infrared.
Right.
I think no. We'll follow up with Tim.
And we probably should, I mean,
Dark
Do
at
something.
5 o'clock,
Yeah.
probably should follow up quick, right?
I'm also wondering what the winter maintenance policy is. We reviewed it back in February, and at the last I remember, and my remember is getting rusty, is that we asked that language that an attorney had given us regarding sidewalks be added.
I thought that had all been done.
I couldn't,
I don't think I've seen
I
it.
don't
It
remember
hasn't
it ever
come
coming
back to
back.
us.
I think the snow melted and the sun came out.
And we
Yeah,
dropped
I
the
think it
ball.
went away for that to be done and didn't come out.
I'll have to look.
Double check.
And the other thing, I'm throwing this out as a suggestion for us to think about, and I don't like to add anything to the budget, but John brought it up earlier, we have crossings for pedestrians that are really unsafe, and of course, dark earlier. one of them's been pointed out to us several times, which is the crosswalk to the Tilton House. That one, and this one out here. It's dark, it's hard to see. They have solar pedestrian crossing lights. I have sent information to the chief because he was interested in it like a year or so ago, but I haven't seen that added to anybody's budget. And
How would they attach?
they're poles, so I think, does Meredith have one? So it's
Yeah,
a pole, there's a light, and there's a solar, and what happens is the pedestrian goes up to the pole and they push a button, and it comes on, there's a sign, and they say different things, probably pedestrian crossing. And what happens is these lights, there's one that I sent to the chief where the lights just scroll around the sign. I saw one in my travels Monday to the coast, and that was solar too, it might have been in Portsmouth, and the whole sign lit up. So it makes it obvious to a motorist, especially the ones with the lights chase themselves around the sign, that there's a pedestrian coming somewhere out of the dark.
How pricey are they?
When I looked at them, I think it was a year ago, they were around $2,000, the solar ones.
Yep. So you would need one for each.
You'd have one on each side.
So 4,000 there and 4,000 here, $8,000.
Are we allowed to do those?
Yeah, that's what I was
On a
gonna
state road?
ask, on a state road.
I have a suspicion that Mr. Bill Lambert would be delighted if we put them up, because number one,
Yeah.
they've never liked that crosswalk at Tilton House because of low visibility, cars coming around, et cetera, et cetera.
They
don't like-
wanted one of those.
Yes, they don't like a lot of our crosswalks because they are so close to where cars park. So when a pedestrian leaves the crosswalk, they still have to walk past the car. And once they get past the car, they're typically in that travel lane. So I got a feeling he'd be delighted if we installed those.
Can we
I'm
put
totally
in,
supportive.
if we don't put it in the budget, can we apply for like one of these community grants like Franklin Savings Bank has?
Sure, we're gonna apply for any.
I don't know if that's one of the,
They have grants concerning public safety. Peter?
Catherine, that sign you talk about is just what we need, I think, to get a crosswalk over at Riverfront Park,
Yeah.
since you can't get there from anywhere by sidewalk.
Well, so
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I was curious what the status was of the information I brought you before about the crosswalk from the state. I had given you all that information about, and if you recall, what was it, like $30,000 when it was all said and done? So it was,
It was an outrageous amount of money.
right,
When did that become effective? Because didn't we recently put a crosswalk at the PD that they just have the signs at for the trail?
We don't crosswalk there.
So at that point, they wanted us to put a lighted pedestrian crossing, and I think that one actually stopped the traffic.
yeah,
That was over $100,000.
$120,000.
That cost. This one was all said and done, or the one they wanted over here. The reason they didn't require it is because we didn't put a crosswalk in.
Right.
We just put up some signs. The rest of the trail's on this side of the road.
Right.
so anyway, to my point, on that particular light, if you recall, Senator Gaida had mentioned that there's next year grant opportunity, so that's something that we should look into.
Absolutely.
Especially the park one. You have a real full-fledged like that.
So we'll wait
But
years to get a crosswalk for Riverfront Park.
Well,
Wonderful.
or you can spend it now. You
Just put
remember,
it in at night.
yeah, you remember with you got, every town got money from the state, remember, for infrastructure. And you are gonna have that money. I think it was 75 each year.
Well,
What did they say the cost of the was it 35,000?
I wanna say it was 30,000. something like that. I have to go back and look.
I can't imagine it's $30,000 to put a light up for Riverfront Park. I just, because they've quoted us over the years, well over $100,000 for a light.
Well, there's a lot of different pedestrian crossing lights.
This one's a very simple one. Yeah.
There's a lot of them out there.
I would be in favor if that money came in to do 30,000 of that money to do that. I would definitely be in favor of that.
Yeah, it would be a good use for it.
Yep,
What's for
absolutely.
So I
It
have
is a very bad area.
Catherine?
I have one last question, and it's about the preliminary assessments to sales ratio study equalization that the assessor's avatar has sent us. I quickly counted these, so you have 34 single-family homes, but you have 17 properties in here that have water or water frontage, exactly, lakefront, so, very expensive homes. And I only saw 5 commercials, the rest are, you have 7, more than single-family apartment type situations, you have mobile homes, et cetera, et cetera. So my question and I guess it would be for Avatar, is how do they use these? So do they compare single-family homes to single-family homes? Or do they use this percentage that they've reached using all the properties? Which our median ratio is 98.7%.
Well, I asked Lauren this question specifically, and she tells me that that's the ratio of her appraisal versus the actual sale price of a piece of property. She says it's worth $100,000. It sells for $102,000, and that would be like a certain percentage. And so forth. That's how they figure out the percentage. It's a difference between what we say it's worth as the assessor and what they actually sell for.
But my question is, they've achieved this ratio using all these properties, including the water frontage properties, which are, to me, I wouldn't want my home or anybody else's single-family home compared to one of those, that's sales, because it's just not comparative.
I would think
Right,
that she's
but-
following state law.
I should
Right, but a
think.
lot of this is subjective.
There is
There's
some
no
of that.
definitive, it's like our view tax. Well,
There is
I'm
no
sorry,
view
I didn't
tax.
say that, our view
No.
assessment.
Right.
There isn't anything out there that specifically says a view of Mount Kearsarge is worth this amount of money. It's comparative. These are comparative.
Mhm.
I'm curious. When is she coming in again?
I've got her coming in on Thursday next week to meet with all of you to talk about the contract and to talk about the revaluation.
So maybe that's the time for my question.
That's the time you should come.
Oh, I'll be here.
Oh, excellent. You can ask all the questions you want.
Well, if
You're all set?
have you made an appointment with her yet? Okay.
Peter, you're up.
Mark your calendars, Saturday, December 7th, the Tilton's 2019 Annual Christmas Parade. Formation starts at 3:30 p.m. at Union Sanborn School. Parade departs at 4 p.m. from Union Sanborn, following the normal route on, is that Summer Street? No, it's Elm Street, Cannon Bridge, Main Street to Riverfront Park. Santa will be at the park, as will be refreshments. 6 o'clock will be the fireworks. That's it.
Okay, and would you please repeat the date?
Saturday, December 7th.
7th.
A day
The
that'll live in
that'll
infamy.
live in infamy. All right.
We're dating ourselves.
December 7th. Have you anything else, Peter?
That's it.
Okay, the next up, we're only 48 minutes late for the town administrator's report.
I'll be quick. So you have my report. Last week I had given you a draft of the 2020 town warrant. Tim is still working on the language with the folks at DRA to come up with the appropriate language for that.
Can I ask you a question on that one?
Yes,
Why are we up 2,000 for the lake improvement? Are they actually gonna use that?
yes. Yes, they are,
The plan.
yes.
Okay.
And that
Who
was used
has a
on
plan?
Winter
No,
Swamp.
why?
Conservation Commission.
Yeah, I don't know the specifics of it, but,
Okay.
so,
Got 'em if you need 'em.
It'd be nice to know the total picture on that. And then your Article 4, can we get, on these articles, can we get some explanations?
yes,
Only because that, is there a purchase forthcoming, you know, that's all. And
yes, and Tim worked with Kevin on that, so he did. Wanted to ask.
I'm gonna interrupt you because we're talking about that. So, do we actually have a 10-year plan for the Highway Equipment Reserve Fund?
It would be nice.
Yeah,
I've seen many iterations of
Right,
that
we've had
very
drafts.
plan.
I've never seen it.
well, we've always seen piecemeals. There was a 10-year plan, a really nice 10-year one,
Dennis,
and then it's been chopped up and spit out and redone and drafted, and everybody says they have one, but
Okay.
we've
I
never
think you
seen
had
one.
to try it on for a while.
Okay. The question that I had for you with the town warrant is last year there was some discussion about transferring Bittern Lane over to MB Tractor. Do you want to pursue that? Do you want me to pursue that with MB Tractor to make that
Yes.
transfer?
I would say yes.
Okay, I have 3 yeses and 2, all right.
Yes.
So I have
Five
consensus.
altogether.
Okay,
as
good.
long- as soon as you got 3, you were good to go.
I'm trying to reach consensus. Timetable, Mabel. So, the owners of the property would like to convey the property to the town, and they've asked the town to pay the cost to convey it, as well as install a bronze plaque memorializing the Rogers family donation to the town. If you agree, I'll get an estimate from the attorney on costs as well as a quote for the bronze plaque.
Yes.
I agree.
Yes.
Okay. Senior Center pipe relocation, you heard Pat speak about this earlier. My only concern is,
Peter, you have a comment?
No.
Jeannie?
my concern is if we wait too long, we're not gonna find somebody to work on that. So I will call tomorrow to see if I can get the gentleman to give us his answer, because if we wait much longer, you're not gonna, you know.
I have a question. That line is overspent currently, so where does the money come from?
Town hall night maintenance.
Town hall maintenance. As long as I know where it's coming from.
It's gonna come from our budget, because this isn't something we can't not do.
Right.
I understand that, but I want to know where.
So
That's all.
I'm just saying that by next week, you should really make a decision on this.
What are we waiting for to make the decision?
Well, there is a construction, a contractor that has suggested that he would do this for free, donate services, so.
Somebody that knows what they're doing to do it for free?
The top one there. The top one.
The top one, right there, that one.
This one?
Mhm.
No.
I don't know who that is. Oh. Okay. So next week? Is he gonna do it in packs?
Well, what I've been hearing is that they're not recommending PEX, they're saying it should be copper because of where it's on. That's what I'm hearing,
That's what the other folks have recommended. Right.
copper, not PEX.
Why would they recommend copper over PEX? Isn't PEX gonna have a longer life? Copper gets pinholes over time.
It's interior.
Magnesium in our water in the state eats copper.
Yeah.
I know.
And if
I
PEX
didn't meet
freezes
with
it,
them.
It gives, yeah, in the event.
no, yeah.
PEX is also relatively easy to
Mhm.
That's
repair,
why.
Mm.
even if it's more expensive.
The only
less.
benefit of copper is if it does freeze, you can, I mean, PEX is a little more tricky if it freezes.
That's true. You could take a blowtorch to copper.
Yeah, you
Except
can.
PEX has a little give, Catherine.
It does have a little
Yeah,
bit,
it burns.
so
Right.
if you,
It goes down.
you know,
Mm.
you don't lose all your heat and it's just a little bit of freeze, it won't split.
Mhm.
That's interesting.
All right, I can ask the question.
It's the same thing.
All right, follow-up from last week. As you know, we had one of the members of the Police Building Study Committee come in and resign from the committee. The question to you is, would you like to fill that vacant seat? I spoke with the chair of the Police Building Study Committee. He said he didn't feel like it was necessary, but if he would like, he can provide you names, or you can provide him names, but he didn't feel like at this point it was necessary.
You're far enough along.
That's what he felt.
My vote is no. We're way too far along to add someone in and go explain all
How
what
does
we've
anybody
done.
come up to speed?
It's like,
You know, realistically, the committee has
I
done
would give my vote to the
their
chair.
work. I heard that,
Okay.
real publicly, from what I understand, yeah.
All right, and the open enroll, so I hear consensus. It's a no.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. Open enrollment process for health insurance will begin later next week. And just FYI, relative to the revaluation, because I'm sure you've all been hearing from residents.
I have.
We have scheduled 13 appointments already for the 21st, and I've asked for another additional date because we've got now a waiting list. And to that point, I mentioned earlier, I did schedule out our Lauren specifically to come and meet with you next week to talk about the contract and to talk about the revaluation.
What day is the last day to file for an abatement?
Isn't it in January? It's after the
I
bill.
wanna
It's March
say-
or April.
Okay, yeah.
I just had that information.
It's too late for this year's.
No.
No, it's
after-
not
It's
too late.
after the second tax bill, the final
Yeah, that's
bill,
right.
but you've got some time.
Yeah.
You have to
Yes,
file it's either,
I want to say it was December.
is it December?
I just looked at that.
We'll let you know the
I thought
exact,
it was April 15th.
we'll let you know the exact date, but be advised, don't wait.
Yeah, didn't I gave you a copy.
Don't wait.
The sooner the better.
That's right.
Do you have it with you?
I might. No, I don't.
Okay.
I forgot to look it up before.
Yeah,
I can look it up
I just
at home.
don't remember. So,
I just looked it up for somebody too, and I just can't remember. It's for next year though, right? It's April 15th for next year.
That's
Right, but you're filing for this year's taxes, and you don't want to wait.
No, don't wait.
Back.
In New Hampshire, the abatement application deadline is March 1st. So
There you go.
This was just a Google search, so it may be incorrect.
Fake news.
Well,
Nonetheless, don't wait, don't wait.
that's all I have unless you have questions for me.
So, that concludes our regular agenda with the exception of other business. Is there any other business to come before the board this evening?
Do we have, is Jacob already started? He's already started. Okay.
Is there any public comment before we get this out of here?
Oh, just thank you.
What'd you think?
Thank you for coming. I hope to see more of you.
More often.
Really? Oh, okay.
You could be here every Thursday if you wish.
I'm probably going to be.
Bring friends.
There you go.
Where you
John, did you have one other
from? On
thing?
School Street?
I was just wondering, have we been able to get a quorum for the budget committee?
We had one last night, but so the sewer, the Rockland Village District or Precinct,
Is
has
it-
not supplied a member to the budget committee.
Since it
And
started?
it does not have to be a commissioner. It can be anybody within
We haven't gotten
the
anybody,
water district.
the call has been out. We haven't had anybody volunteer except for me, and I can't serve, apparently. So,
I've asked several members. I mean, I'm a member of the water district.
you're a selectman as well.
I'm a selectman.
You have the
and
same
I'm a
issue.
We
but
still
I
need
have-
some help with the budget committee.
We need a
do.
member from the Lockmere Water District. We have 5 members at large.
So, wait for motion. Motion to adjourn.
Second, vote with your feet.
Don't block the road.
Aye.
Aye,
You should
just to
have-
make it official. That's all, folks.